Many inventors whose brain children have gone down in history not only showed their genius, but also bordered on madness. This is not surprising, because sometimes finding and creating something new inevitably involves risk. But, unfortunately, the authors of the inventions were unable to provide themselves with at least some kind of security, and therefore the work on their brain children ended tragically. Here are 7 inventors whose genius led them to their final path. Horace Hanley, one of the first inventors of the submarine, photo use knives. Ruth's first attempts to create a device for deep-sea diving, that is, a submarine, took place in the second half of the century before last, and the most famous author of the realized submarine concept was the American Horace Hanley, who back in 1861 decided to use his prototype to strengthen the position of the Southerners during the American Civil War. But everything went completely wrong. The first 2 copies did not survive long, one sank due to damage to the plating, and the second was sunk themselves so that it would not fall to the enemy. As a result, Horace Hanley conducted tests of the third model himself, and successfully, because he managed not only to dive and surface, but also to complete the combat mission of eliminating the enemy ship. But the second time, neither the device nor its author were so lucky. The submarine was hit by an enemy shell, after which it sank with its entire crew. Otto Lilienthal, tester of the sky, crashed on the ground. Photo, Peekaboo. Ruth's century before last is also known in history as the time when people constantly tried to fly into the skies. Among the enthusiasts trying to take off in their aircraft was the inventor Otto Lilienthal. His engineering heritage includes many gadgets for flying of a very monstrous type. In fairness, it is worth clarifying that, despite the rather terrifying appearance, sometimes they still took off carrying one person for some time, only one day. Lilienthal's next test of his glider, that's what he called his creations, ended in failure. In 1896, the engine of a flying gadget simply failed in the air, and the engineer fell to the ground, finding himself buried under his own invention. Wang Hu's first famous but unlucky cosmonaut. There were also flying people in ancient times. It goes without saying that their experience was even less successful. This turned out to be the path of a Chinese civil servant named Wang Hu. He lived 500 years before the flight of the Wright brothers actually happened. So, the level of scientific and technological progress did not allow the creation of gliding devices. As a result, Wang Hu decided to get almost to the Earth's orbit using a device that vaguely resembles a rocket in technology. In fact, he just took a chair where he attached 47 gunpowder rockets, and also decorated his creation with kites. The Chinese inventor, of course, carried out the tests himself. He sat down in a chair and ordered the rockets to be set on fire. The result of his attempt is obvious and tragic. The launch did not happen, but a powerful explosion occurred, leaving only a few scraps of a robe left from the unlucky enthusiast. Cooper Phipps, a sad case when the genius of an inventor misfired fatally. Cooper Phipps went down in history as a fairly famous shipbuilder of the British Empire among his contemporaries. Therefore, when he conceived the next concept of the vessel, they did not doubt its success, but on the contrary, they hoped to strengthen the Royal Navy. The result of Phipps' work was the sailing battleship HMS Captain, which was put into service in 1869. True, he remained in service for only a year, and was essentially laid up all this time. The very first checks revealed the ship's insufficient stability, and yet they decided to try to conduct tests on the high seas. Phipps personally led them, but for both him and the battleship it all ended sadly. The ship quickly swayed in open waters, capsized and sank. Fewer than 20 crew members survived the tragedy, but Cooper Phipps was not among them. Sylvester Roper, a striking example when it is better to be a tester when you are young. A man named Sylvester Roper literally devoted his entire life to invention, creating a variety of gadgets. In many ways, his eccentricity and risk-taking nature helped him maintain his enthusiasm over the years. Only once they became the reason for his premature death. And it was like this. Sylvester Roper was already in his 80s when he actually designed a prototype of a modern moped, attaching a steam engine of his own invention to his bicycle. According to tradition, Roper decided to test his brainchild personally, not considering age to be a hindrance. But if he assembled the engine of his vehicle conscientiously, then his own heart failed him. At a speed of 60 kilometers per hour, it, alas, stopped, probably due to overload.